this recording here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual masterclass event titled The Heroine's Journey to Love, what this process looks like. Okay. First time I've done one of these events in quite a while. The last one was April of last year. Yeah, I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was a while back. It was spring last year, so it's nice to be back here. I've got kind of some distraction because I got like chat over here and I've got chat here, so see what goes. But yeah, a lot of you, if you are here, you're probably interested in a deeper perspective on the road to yourself and then ultimately to a soulmate kind of love for you. You realize that there's more to this whole dating romantic process than just boy meets girl. We both swiped right, and that's that, right? And especially if you've been experiencing dating challenges or you feel like you're running into patterns, and you can tell that there's something deeper to all of this. And I mean deeper, not just beyond like these were my family dynamics growing up, or these are my specific wounds and how they manifest in relationship. I mean something deeper in terms of like you've recognized that there is something mythic to your journey. There is something to your entire process. There is, if you want to call it, it's like there is a universal guiding hand behind this. It is God's path or plan for you. And you come to realize that when you're truly moving towards, I mean, the name soulmate love is pretty indicative. If you're trying to move towards that level of a relationship with someone else, a soulmate connection, you realize that, well, to accomplish something like that, I have to get in touch with my own soul. And that is kind of like the fundamental human experience. I find it hard to believe that there'd be too many things that are much deeper than this whole path. It's like this is the path to claim who you authentically are, and then by extension, to end up in a relationship with your reciprocal opposite, the person that God has in store for you. I don't think there's any things that are much deeper than that whole path and process. And so, what I'm hoping to outline here today, for this is primarily for the women, is and men will find some value from this, but primarily like if you are a woman, what does your mythic path look like? And there's two different paths of how this can go. Okay. I'm going to outline what these paths look like. What are the main sequential steps? What are kind of like, this is sort of your roadmap as far as once you identify which of these two paths resonates with you that you're on, what is going to be your roadmap going forward? Arguably, each of these paths is going to have like multiple steps. Like it could have 12 different steps if you're moving around a circle. I've summarized this down into the four main steps. And each of these four could be broken down into like three subdimensions. That's not what we're going to go into today. I'm trying to keep this as simple and concise as I can, but give you like a general roadmap of like, okay, I'm A or I'm B. And if you're a woman watching this, you're going to be one of these two camps. You're either going to be group A or you're going to be group B. And we're going to go into what that is. Okay. And then what your journey towards self-alignment and then ultimately attraction with the right partner for you. What is that going to look like depending on which group you're in? Okay. And that's why I call this like a mythic path, because what's crazy is it doesn't really matter where in the world you are. It doesn't really matter like what your background is, the specifics of your upbringing, the specifics of your family, the specifics of what you do for life or career or anything like this. All of this somehow boils down to like these same two fundamental paths of the human experience. That's why I say this is mythic, because this is just baked into the human experience. It's like just part of the game that we're all here to play. Okay. So I think I've admitted a bunch of these people. Good to go. I'm going to start this. So the heroine's journey to love, really what this is going to be is there are two main paths. Okay. There is a woman with what's called a feminine oriented ego. A woman with a feminine oriented ego, group A. Group B is a woman with a masculine conditioned ego. Okay, you got feminine ego women, you got masculine conditioned ego women. And all you ladies are going to be one or the other. Okay, you're going to fall into one of these two groups. I'm going to be extrapolating on both these. Okay, but we're going to start with the feminine ego woman. And I don't know, is it like exactly a 50-50 split, or like 50% of women lean this way and 50-50 this way? Is a little more of one. Doesn't really matter. You're going to fall into one of these two, and there's a lot of women in both groups. Okay, so just as a tangent real quick, there's a lot of what would you say? The idea of ego gets a bad rap. A lot of people hear ego and they're like, oh, that's bad. You don't want to have an ego. People with egos are obnoxious. They're bad people. They're materialistic. They're self-absorbed. Like they're too egocentric, right? There's a lot of like negative connotations to using the word ego, but that's not really, it's not strictly correct. You need an ego. Psychically speaking, you need an ego. An ego is your consciousness actualized into the world. Your ego is the thing that orients you in the world. Your ego is the thing that gives you direction. It gives you something to aspire towards. It gives you a goal to work towards. It gives you certain desires that you move towards. Now, egos are problematic when you're overly identified with your ego and you think like your limited human experience is the whole experience. Bad. Yeah. You've also got that would be considered like a material ego. You've also got a lot of people who go the opposite route where they are like, I don't have an ego at all, and they just like pretend like they don't have an ego. But in doing that, they still are over identified with a spiritual ego trying to bypass around it. So neither one is good. Both are an over identification with a limited worldview. But as long as you're not over identifying either way, you do need an ego because that's what moves you forward in life. And it doesn't matter if you've got a feminine one or a masculine conditioned one as a man or a woman, you got one of those, and that's what's moving you forward in the world. Okay. And you need it. And the way you can kind of think of it is it's like if we're all in a big video game right now, the ego is like the character in the game. You don't want to identify with it so much that you think you are entirely just the character in the game and that's the whole experience. You want to remember that you're also the player outside the game, guiding the character in the game. But you don't want to get so identified only with the player outside the game that you just forget to actually enjoy the damn game and experience it for what it is. Okay, and that's what your ego is. So, anyways, tangent, rant aside, you've either got a feminine ego as a woman or you've got a masculine conditioned one. Okay. The feminine ego, the way I want you to think of both of these paths towards wholeness in yourself, and then also alignment with the right man for you, they go oppositional directions. They go totally opposite ways. Okay. A feminine ego, I want you to remember these terms. The feminine ego solidifies up and out. The feminine ego solidifies and then up and out. Picture it like a tree, okay? Like this. The masculine conditioned ego is the opposite. It dissolves down and in. Dissolves down and in. Feminine solidifies up and out. Masculine dissolves down and in. You can almost picture it like the image I want to kind of like bake in here is picture it like it's the tree of life. Okay. And you've got this super like this trunk of this massive tree going right here. Here's the trunk going down the center. Okay. And then the top is the canopy of the leaves that spread out like this and form the top half of this circle, like the top half dome like this to the midway point. Okay. And then the trunk continues on down, and then the roots stretch out down and out, and they form the bottom half of the circle. And then so the whole thing is this one big circle with the trunk right down the center. And you got the leaves as the top half and the roots as the bottom half. And that is like the tree of life. And the feminine journey is the solidification to the up and the birth out like this. The masculine ego's journey is a dissolution in and inward like that into the roots. Okay. And the two together form the totality. Now, you're at some point in your life, you're going to be doing both of these things if you're on your path of growth and individuation to become who you authentically are. It's not like you just, oh, my path is only the feminine journey and it's never going to be the masculine one. Because ideally, like it's this continual process of like, it's like this, you're moving like this spiral, right? I shouldn't even say a spiral, it's a figure eight. You're moving like a figure eight pattern between these up and down the tree like this. It's intertwining. It's like it's continually, it's this moving process. And so what's relevant is where are you right now? If right now you have a more feminine ego versus a more masculine conditioned one, then your process is going to be like a solidification up and out. If it's a more masculine conditioned one, it's a dissolution down and in. And at a certain point, you dissolve down and in, and then you kind of like break down there, and then you solidify back out. And likewise, if you solidify up and out, eventually you get to a point where you have to dissolve and go back in. So you're going to be going both ways. And this is just the game of life. It's like the tree continually grows and then things of it die. And then it grows and then it dies and grows and dies. And like this is just the cycle of life and death. This is the cycle of your human existence. And the psyche moves in these spiral patterns, just like a tree, just like plants, just like the things that grow of this earth. You're of this earth. You grow just like them. Okay. So that's what that is. It's, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat over here. Maybe I need to put on the Wi-Fi. That might make it a little bit better. Okay. So that is, anyways, yeah, derailed me a little bit. The key right now is figuring out which of these two are you. You're going to identify more with one than the other. You're going to be more. So to figure out, are you a feminine ego woman or are you a masculine conditioned one? You really just take a look at like, well, what is the current state of your dating life? If you are a feminine ego woman, usually the issues you're going to run into are going to be more telling as to like what your current path is. Feminine ego women, the issues that they experience in love and in life are classic ones. Lack of boundaries, issues speaking their truth, issues standing up for themselves and exerting themselves outwardly. They have issues with like anxious leaning tendencies. They have issues with becoming overly enmeshed in a relationship. They have issues abandoning themselves or over giving for another person, or over empathizing with another person. This is all going to be like symptoms of an ego, a feminine ego woman. Okay, and so if you identify yourself with like many or even most of those types of qualities, that's probably what you are. Most likely, that's where you are right now. Okay, that's the feminine ego woman. The masculine conditioned ego, and I use the term conditioned specifically, and we'll go into why that is. The masculine conditioned woman is in a way oppositional. Her issues are she deeply fears vulnerability, vulnerability with self, and especially vulnerability in love and in relationship with a man. She deeply yearns for a connection and a long commitment, but she's afraid of the sensitivity, the love, the emotions, the connection that all comes with that process. She's usually achievement oriented and outwardly goal focused. She's probably been successful in like building her body through fitness or building her career or her financial situation. Like she's achieved a lot of these external metrics of success, but she also there's kind of like a void internally, and she's afraid of that deeper connection with self, and she's afraid to relate to another. She also kind of walks around in this very armored sort of way. It's like I'm good, I'm ready for battle all the time, but it's hard for people to come in, and it's hard for me to let down my armor and guard and express myself authentically and be vulnerable with someone else. Okay, that's a masculine conditioned ego woman. Now, whichever one you feel like you identify more with, I'd say at this point for clients, I don't know. I think it's probably a pretty even split between the two. And you might be even a little bit of a mixture of both of them in certain ways. That doesn't mean there's something wrong. You're probably just going to lean more towards one than the other, but you do take qualities from both in certain ways. Or you even like oscillate between them depending. Like you might be a very like masculine conditioned woman when it comes to life and your career, but then as soon as it comes to relationships, you swap to the other one. Okay, so these are going to happen, but for the most part, especially if your goal here is to align deeply with your authentic self and in order to attract the right partner for you, which of these two do you embody more when it comes to romance, love, relationships? Look at between those two. Do you have issues with vulnerability and sensitivity and emotionality and being open and actually receiving love? Do you have issues receiving compliment? Do you have issues receiving affection, intimacy? You afraid to be vulnerable in that way? Yes. Masculine conditioned ego, most likely. No, I don't have issues with any of that. I easily receive all of that, but I'm just so sensitive to it that I like lose myself and I don't express my boundaries and I have issues standing up for myself. Feminine ego. Okay. So that's always stage one of like what I told you it's going to be a 4-step process. That is stage one of your mythic journey is identification. It's an identification of which of these two camps do I fall more into when it comes to love and relationships and intimacy. It's going to be one of those two. You're going to lean more one. Okay. So that's always step one. That's also step one I do with clients. Okay. So we're going to start with the feminine ego's path, solidification, up and out. Using that same tree analogy, you can picture like the feminine is, she's like a seed in the earth. You've got Mother Earth, the great mother, like it is the universe itself, the source of life, the womb of origination and the tomb that everything returns back to. Okay, that is like, this is like the feminine at like the largest concept. And there's something called the primal relationship. And what the primal relationship is, this is all of us are born as babies, and even before that, as fetuses in the womb. And we are interconnected with the mother, your actual biological mother, but by extension, even it's the archetypal great mother, the source of all life itself. You're connected to the mother, and the primal relationship is in relation to the great mother. That's where you originate from. It's like coming back to the singularity. You're like the fetus interconnected with the mother herself. Okay. The feminine, that is kind of like what the feminine is. It's the great mother. It's the collective oneness of all. It is the original source of life. And what the feminine ego is in a way, she's still overly identified with the primal relationship of the great mother. Okay. And I know this sounds kind of complex. I'm going to elaborate on this. Okay. She's over identified with that primal relationship. She has kind of stayed in this enmeshed relationship with the oneness of the relationship, and she hasn't emerged out of it enough. And that's why I use the seed analogy. A woman with a feminine ego is like a seed who's still in the soil of the earth. She's a part of the earth. She's buried in the earth. She is still the earth. She's interconnected with all of it, but she hasn't birthed her own autonomous individuality to be born as that tree. That's why I use it. She needs to solidify herself up and out and like bloom out of the earth because she's too enmeshed into the totality relationship of like the soil itself. The seed needs to germinate and be born and not just stay germinating under the soil as part of the soil. And that's what the feminine ego is she's too oneness of relationship. This is why the problems that she runs into with romance and with men is she's anxious for a relationship, or she enmeshes easily in a relationship, or she doesn't have structures or boundaries to separate her from him, from the relationship, and she doesn't have this differentiation because she's in this primal relationship of oneness with all. She's like in the oneness of all. As a kind of a tangent to help illustrate this, I don't know if any of you have ever taken psychedelics, mushrooms, LSD, it doesn't matter, okay? Whenever I've taken them, there's always this, you get this sensation of like an interconnectedness to everything. You feel like you kind of just melt into the one, the singularity, the all, and you're kind of like, yes, I'm kind of like an extension of my environment, and I am interconnected to everything energetically. And this, to me, at least from my vantage point, is like more similar to what like this feminine perspective would be. I'm not saying women walk around like they're tripping on mushrooms all the time, but I do think that the feminine perspective is much more of an interconnected perspective to everything. It's why a lot of times the feminine has an easy time empathizing with other people or being particularly sensitive to the pain of something else or having compassion for something else, or she has an easier time putting herself in something else's shoes because she recognizes the intrinsic interconnectedness of how like we are all similar in this way. We come from the same origination source. We're from the same soil. We're in this together. I think that's kind of much more of the feminine vantage point, which is beautiful in its own way, but there's a disadvantage to it. And the disadvantage is you're so interconnected to everything that you're not able to separate you from them. Yeah. And the problem that a lot of these feminine ego women run into is because your natural default state is like relationship, and I want a relationship without enough separation, it's super easy to abandon yourself for a relationship. And so this is the woman that will either accept breadcrumbs like indefinitely because she's so desirous of a relationship, because that's just her natural state of being, is in relationship to life, to oneness, and that includes a man. She just wants all of this to like be in one place. She's so desirous of that that she'll accept the wrong man, and she'll tolerate the wrong man, and she will not be able to stand up for herself to tell the wrong man, quite frankly, to fuck off. She won't do that. She will stay chasing after breadcrumbs, or she'll stay in a toxic or non-functional relationship for way past what was appropriate. This is the woman who's like in the wrong relationship for years because, well, it's like I'm comfortable in this relationship because I'm so afraid of the independent autonomy that would come from me being alone. And that's how she can get stuck in these cycles for a long time, because she's hasn't separated herself enough. She's so desirous of a relationship. And yeah, that's the issue she's going to run into. She runs into, yeah, accepting behavior like that and not being able to stand up for herself and exert herself. And so the that's one side of the issue she runs into. The other side of the issue she runs into is, as a feminine woman, she's very attractive to masculine oriented men. The problem is that her shadow, which she doesn't see, is this consuming shadow. Okay, and this is something that a lot of men are not going to tell you, but my theory of like what most men, like deep down, like what is like basically the deepest existential fear of the masculine, is being consumed by love or life. It's being devoured in a relationship, being devoured by the original primal relationship. That's the thing that the masculine consciousness fears probably more than anything else. And again, because the primal relationship, like let's just say, go back to like you're a baby or you're a fetus. You're a fetus in the womb, or you're a baby with your mother. Your mother is life and death. Like she is the source of like the entire reason you're alive. And if she was to withdraw any of that, you die. So the masculine consciousness is a separation from this. This is the oneness. The masculine consciousness struggles and fights and struggles and fights to separate itself from the oneness. And the higher it goes like this, the more tension there is to pull away from this origination point of the primal relationship. And so masculine consciousness is doing this. And there is a deep terror of this, like coming up and swallowing it again. There's an absolute terror of that, something existential fear of consciousness, to be devoured by the unconscious of the primal. That's what the masculine's afraid of. Well, a feminine woman is, this is the weird paradox, is like the thing that you're most afraid of is also the thing you most desire. And the thing you most desire is also the thing you're most afraid of. And I don't know why the game was designed this way, but that seems to be how it is. What you're afraid of is your task forward, and it's probably the gold that you desire is on the other side of that. And so the masculine, like most fears being consumed by the feminine, and yet it also most desires that same thing, because that's also where how he can be reborn. And there's a whole process that I'm not going to go into right now. Okay. The problem, if you're a feminine ego woman, what happens is that there's a shadow part of you. And Jung described this as like the innocent predator. There's this shadow part of the feminine ego where she's so desirous of a relationship that one part of her abandons herself to enmesh with the masculine, and there's another shadowy part of her that's consuming him, consuming the relationship. And this is why you get stuck in this anxious, avoidant type push and pull dynamic, because her feminine ego is like so desirous to be in a relationship with the masculine that she's like constantly running to him and like, I'm going to overgive myself and I'm going to abandon myself and I have no boundaries and I just want you to love me. And she's doing this, but she doesn't realize there's this shadow part of her that's emerging out of her trying to consume him. And that's what he's terrified of. And that's also why he's running, because she's triggering his deepest existential fear. And that's the weird paradox, is like the feminine ego woman is so attractive to a masculine man, but also equally terrifying, because he knows to truly love her in a full sacrificial commitment, like a marriage or a family with her, requires that he allows himself to be devoured. And he wants to ensure that she's actually a safe woman to do that with. Okay. So this is the paradox that the masculine experiences in relation to the feminine ego woman. Okay. So let's just say you are a feminine ego woman, and you know this, because I have issues with boundaries. I have issues with like strong anxious tendencies with men. I abandon myself. I overgive. I feel like I fall into enmeshment patterns, or I deal with like just long-term relationships because I just want a relationship, even though it's not the right one for me. Okay. Stage one. Cool. You've identified that. All right. Now, how do we commence your journey? Well, remember, it's a solidification. It's a solidification to yourself, essentially. So what you have to do, this is the same process I walk clients through. Your second step is we have to cut the things that are linking you to other people away from yourself. We have to bring you back home to you. And this is the second stage. I call these with clients, like I call them emotional anchors. These are emotional anchors. These are people who are in your life, certainly romantic relationships, but it could be other people. These are people in your life who are keeping you stuck in a particular place, whether it's now or whether it's the past, and all of them are disconnecting you from yourself. That's an emotional anchor. Examples of what an emotional anchor. It's the friends with benefits that you're currently sleeping with, but like you don't want to let go of. And you're like, I want the serious committed relationship, and my friends with benefit is not going to become that. But I also can't let go of this because it's comfortable, it's convenient. There is some intimacy that comes from it. I'm getting some positive things from this, but I just can't let go of that. But as long as you're holding on to that, you're not actually open and available to the man that God has in store for you. You're not going to be on that path because I'm anchored to this. So friends with benefits is a common one. The ex-boyfriend who comes back revolving door style into your life every 6 months. That's emotional anchor. Could also even be could even be someone you dated 10 years ago who you thought was like your absolute soulmate, and then it fell apart. It was like the one who got away, and now you subconsciously compare every single man you ever meet to like that romantic thing from when you were young. Okay, that's also an emotional anchor. All of these are like psychic karmic ties. They're like knots in your psyche that are keeping you stuck and disconnected from the fullest authentic expression of who you actually are. So that's always the second stage, is like, let's take a look at what are these knots? Who are these individuals, relationships, psychic links that are keeping you anchored to either a present situation or a past situation? That's always the first thing I do with clients, is like, actually, first thing is identifying which of these two egos they are. The second thing is, let's disentangle these links and remove the psychic links. And I'm telling you now, you cannot move forward in your love life if you're still deeply entangled with all of these other links. It just won't happen. A lot of people they want to have their cake and they want to eat it too, in the sense that I want to have my casual fun with my friends with benefits, but like I know they're not the one I'm going to end up with. So like I'm going to keep my friends with benefits, but then while I'm doing that, I'm also going to remain open to like the man that God has in store for me. Hell no, that's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen that way. You're trying to game the system, and God knows what you're doing, and it's not going to work out. Okay? If you want to attract the man that God has in store for you, you have to be willing to make the sacrifices to be worthy of that. The sacrifice is you let go of this relationship that is lesser and that's not aligned for you. You let go of the friends with benefits. You say no to the revolving door ex-boyfriend who comes back every 6 months. You make peace with and you say thank you for the experience, and you let go of that soulmate connection from 10 years ago. Okay, and you let go of all of these things. And in doing that, you are coming back home to you. You're solidifying yourself in the right way. And you have to set boundaries with these men in your life of like, get out of here, go away, please. You're not the right person for me, right? You're moving them all along and you're coming back to you. And that's a huge step to your journey. And that's actually like putting you onto your path. As long as you're entangled with these people, your relationship cannot set sail to the destination you're trying to go to, because you're anchored in this familiar safe harbor. And you're not going to begin your mythic journey to paradise if you're still anchored in a safe harbor. So you got to cut the anchors, cut the blocks, remove those links, and then you can actually set sail. Okay, so that's always step 2 for the feminine heroine. And for most of you ladies who are in this camp, what that's going to be is like being able to, quite frankly, tell men to fuck off. Tell men thank you, but no thank you. Tell men no, or go away, or you can't keep coming into my life, and setting a clear, firm boundary and articulating that outward. That's probably what that's going to look like for you if you are on this path. And that's how you're going to disentangle and release all of these soul ties to actually free yourself to begin setting sail on your journey. Okay. And typically when I work with a client, the removing of the emotional anchor period is not very long. It's usually about 1 to 2 months on the long end to cut these ties to free yourself to begin your voyage. Okay. That's stage 2. We got 2 more stages to go on this woman. Stage 3. What is that? This is the inward call into you. You've removed all of these blocks, so you're not entangled with other people anymore. Now you actually have the emotional space and bandwidth to go inward into yourself. This is the inward journey. Now, you're a feminine ego woman. That means you identify with the feminine, with femininity, with relation, with connection, with love. Like that is your natural default state of being. With eros, it's called eros in the Greek. It's like it's love, it's connection, it's relationship. That's what your ego identifies with. Okay. What you need to come into wholeness is the opposite. You need masculine. You need logos. You need separation, differentiation. You need structure, the system, the discipline. Like that's the thing that is the separate thing that will bring into wholeness. Okay. So what that generally looks like is when you begin your inward journey back into yourself, you've been, again, you're that seed and you're trying to grow into the tree. It's almost like you need the masculine to kind of infuse you with the potential so that you can burst out and the tree can begin to grow. And what that usually looks like, what I've seen repeatedly with clients, is you start experiencing, you meet your animus. That is your inward masculine spirit guide. It's called your animus, Animus, animus. It's from Jung. It's the description of what your the inner masculine part of a woman's psyche is. Now, you can think of your animus like if you're a feminine woman, the animus is like the male guide to your soul. He's like your spirit guide who will help you through your inner voyage. He's the one who will like pull you out of the depths of hell and like help empower you and help you become stronger and more assertive and direct as you climb out of the underworld and then reemerge on the surface as like the brilliant, beautiful tree or flower that you're meant to be growing into. He is the one who like helps initiate you again, solidification up and out. He helps do that. He's the life force that is imbued into your seed, so the seed finally like germinates and then and grows, so that you're not just the seed and soil for all of your life. Okay, that is your animus. Your animus can come in different forms, though. This is where it gets a little like interesting. Your animus, you've got I don't want to say good and bad because it's too relativistic and it's not accurate. Your animus is there's a light and there's a dark. The light is almost like the spirit guide to your higher self. And the shadow, let's say, maybe not light and dark, but it's like the spirit and the shadow. The shadow animus is the hidden parts of yourself that you need to face and integrate. And both of these are useful. Like the spirit, the light animus, helps guide you towards higher heights. And the shadow animus emerges out of the shadow and shows you what you need to integrate about yourself. And either one is you need to meet this figure. And it is in meeting this figure and integrating his qualities that you are then able to ascend higher, because you still have your feminine qualities about you, but now he's infusing you with the missing masculine qualities that you didn't have. Structure, discipline, directness, boldness, the ability to say no, the ability to set boundaries. He infuses you with all of these things. It's like you were like an overly vulnerable woman with a feminine ego, and he's like, hey, here's a shield, here's a sword. And you're like, nice, I got a sword and shield now. Like, I feel a lot safer out in the world. He's like, right, because you got, I'm with you now. I am your sword and shield, and you can walk through life, and you're good. So that's what that's going to be. Now, what does that look like for you? What I typically see with clients is we start unearthing this. We excavate this during our work together. And the animus starts typically appearing first in your dreams. And then there's another 2 stages. I'm not going to go into that. But the animus first appears in your dreams. Okay? What that looks like is you either have positive dreams of men or you have negative dreams of men. But both are extremely relevant to your growth and your development as a feminine woman. Okay? I'll give you an example from 2 different clients who I think both of these dreams happened in the last like month or 2, right? Positive animus figure. My client dreamed that she'd had issues with sleeping, and so she was taking sleep medication. And so she had this dream that she had way overdone it on sleep medication. And this is why it was a scary dream, because she felt like it was very like realistic. She had dreamt that she'd taken so much sleep medication that she was driving her car, and then she like rear-ended someone who rear-ended someone else and caused this like massive 50 car pileup of disaster. And there was like so much destruction and like tons of just like carnage, and it was like the worst case scenario of what could have possibly ever happened. And she comes out of her car and she's just like totally distraught. Like I've destroyed so many people's lives, and like, and I'm fine, ironically, but like how much damage have I caused? And like there's fires raging, like the city's burning down, right? It was this like huge catastrophe. Overhead there is this helicopter that's like has a spotlight on the entire interaction, and the helicopter is like part police helicopter, part emergency medical helicopter, part news helicopter. Like it's kind of all of these things. And she's looking at all this wreckage around her like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, what have I done? And she finds herself teleported into this helicopter, and she's in the passenger seat, and there's a man who's flying the helicopter, and they're just kind of, they fly away from the wreckage. And she's like, wait, I caused all this damage. And this man, he's a faceless man. He doesn't have a specific details that she can make out. You know how that is in dreams, right? It's like you're talking to someone and you know who you're talking to, generally speaking, but they don't have specific details. They might not have a specific name, but you feel a certain level of like familiarity or recognition with them. Like that's what this was. She recognized him, but didn't know exactly who he was. And there was this familiarity of like, I feel like I know you, and I do feel safe with you, and I trust you, even though I don't even know what you look like. Okay. That's the positive animus. That's the spirit guide animus. And he essentially told her something to the effect of like, it's okay. We'll figure this out. Logically, what's our next step? What can we do? And he's kind of like helping guide her through the catastrophe that she viewed basically as like an analogy for her life of like, I feel like my life is spiraling out of control and I'm causing all this damage. He's like, it's okay. We got you. And he's from a higher vantage point looking in of like, I can see what you're doing. I've got you. What do we do next? Next step, logical. Don't feel so sensitive for everyone else that you're just melding into all the damage. You're melding into your sensitivity to everyone else's pain. How can we rise above this and look at it from a more objective standpoint so you don't abandon yourself in relationship to everyone else? And that was essentially his message. And he was this guide. And he's like literally from a higher vantage point in a helicopter. And he's also, it's interesting because he was a cop, like a paramedic, and a newscaster. And all of these are kind of like authority figures, protecting type figures of elements of society that are structures of society, which is also associated with masculinity. So yeah, he's this guiding masculine logical force that helped her disconnect from her constant over connecting with everything else, constant over sensitivity and empathy with everything else and everyone else's pain. And I don't want to hurt anyone else. And just how can we separate this? Just look at things more objectively, pragmatically, logically, so we can move forward. Yeah. That was a very powerful dream for her because he showed her what she needed to integrate in herself. And then we began our work of like, okay, your animus has given you the path forward. Now, how do we apply this in terms of our coaching together to move you forward? Okay. And that was like an example of a spirit animus that she met on her inward journey. That's one half of an example. If you're a feminine woman, you have a positive animus interaction. You can get the shadow animus now. Okay. This is the opposite one. This is usually the more terrifying one, as it should be. But the shadow animus is also, I would argue, just as, if not maybe even more transformative when you meet this guy and integrate him. Okay. Common dream. This is another client. She dreamed. This is like one of the most common dreams that I hear from my female clients, maybe even the most common one. She's safe in her apartment, representing her like current comfortable ego structure. She's in her apartment, and there is an aggressive, seemingly like potentially criminal man banging at her front door. And he's like banging at the door, like, let me in. And sometimes the dream goes one of two ways. Like the first way is she like peeks open the door to see who this is. And then he just like kicks in the door and just busts in. And then she usually like wakes up out of terror after that because, you know, she's worried about what's going to happen next. Alternatively, she like knows who this is. And she's like, this is this terrible, like predatory man that I'm terrified of. Hell no, I'm not letting this guy in. So she doesn't answer the door, but then he becomes increasingly aggressive, trying to like break in through the door, break in through the window, and then out of terror, also probably wakes up again. Okay. usually a faceless man, but he has a certain energy about him, usually aggressive, predatory, criminal, something along those lines. He could be like a mob boss or a gangster. That's a very common one. Um, that's the shadow masculine. And what he's trying to do is like, this is your psyche. If you're a woman and you have dreams like this is your psyche trying to show you that there is this element of masculinity deep within you that is trying to emerge into you. So you take on its qualities. You take on that assertiveness. You take on that boldness. You take on that direction. You're not afraid of taking a risk. You're not afraid of being offensive. And a lot of times those qualities get separated and pushed onto this masculine figure and they're relegated to the shadow because that's bad. It's bad to be aggressive. It's bad to be offensive. It's bad to say things that might harm people's feelings. And this gets relegated to the masculine shadow. But then this criminal man takes on these qualities and he's trying to like bust into your awareness through your dream to make you pay attention to him. That's why he's so aggressive about trying to bust down your door and get into your house, is because it's like the rejected masculine parts of yourself are like, pay attention to me, form a relationship to me, integrate me. If you take on my power that you've said is bad, but it's not actually, you just don't understand it. If you take me on and you have a relationship with me, I will give you my power. And if you integrate that and you have my power, you will become a more powerful woman. You will become a more whole woman. And that's what this shadow animus is doing. That's why I said earlier, a lot of times I would argue the shadow animus in a woman's dreams, or rather your nightmares, is the more significant figure. Like this is the real shadow alchemy. That's why when Carl Jung says people do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, you do it by integrating the deepest, darkest parts of your psyche. And this is why if you meet the shadow animus, the demonic man, you form a relationship with him, and integrate his qualities, that will propel you to wholeness as a woman. Okay. So all that tying in, these are a couple examples of how that animus journey can look like. I often go into dreams with my clients because your dreams are essentially like, it's like your soul providing the roadmap for what your path is. Yeah, and dreams don't communicate in language. They give you weird images and symbols and like scenes of a movie, and you're like, wow, I don't know what that means. That was freaking weird. But like, it's a roadmap. That is your path. And so I help my clients decipher like what exactly does this mean, and then now how do we practically apply this into your life with yourself and in relationship to other people, because that is your soul's trajectory towards alignment and wholeness. Okay, so that's the third stage. Right. So first stage is I identified what kind of ego I have. Second stage is I've let go of the karmic links that have kept me stuck. And so I'm actually open to coming back home. Third stage is now if you're a feminine woman, you've met your inner masculine qualities that you have rejected or been disconnected from, probably for most of your life. Now, the fourth and final stage is embody this outwardly. How do we apply this out into the world, especially in relation? Okay. You met the inner animus. You met the inner masculine. He gave you the sword. He gave you the shield. And so you're not just the totally vulnerable, like princess who's afraid of everything, but like, I really want a relationship, but I'm also afraid of being harmed, but I'm also so sensitive to everyone else. And I'm just going to overgive everyone in the hopes that they love me back. Okay. He's like, no, you can still be that soft, sensitive, gentle woman that you are at your heart. But here's a sword so you can cut the heads off serpents who are trying to take advantage of that. Yeah. Because there are people who will try to take advantage of your good intrinsic feminine nature, that you're a beautiful flower, and there are people who are going to try to come to your garden and smash on it. We don't want that. We don't want your beautiful femininity stamped out. Here's a sword. You see the snake trying to stomp on your flower. Cut its head off. Okay? That's what your animus bestows you. Gives you the freaking, that'd be like the dark animus. He gives you the sword to cut the heads off of serpents. And then the positive animus, the light animus, probably gives you the shield to stop taking all of the abuse of the world, stop feeling so sensitive to everything else, like I can discern things and I can protect myself in a healthy way. I can attack if I need to, and I can defend myself if I need to. And now because I have both of these, I'm not just the helpless damsel in distress, but you're like Wonder Woman. You're like the warrior woman. You're the queen who's like dangerous. She's the warrior queen. It's like Daenerys from Game of Thrones. Okay, we use that as an example. Daenerys from Game of Thrones. She starts off as this like helpless little girl who's just being used and abused by men, and they move her, like her brother sells her into slavery, and then she's like abused by her first husband, and like, and she's just like moving around with the world. but eventually she claims her power in the form of dragons, and she becomes like the warrior slash the queen, right? And she claims that power, and then she is no longer used by men anymore. And that represents the integration of her animus, and that's why she's emerged as a queen, like a full-fledged queen, is the integration of her oppositional masculine qualities. And so she's still preserved that innate femininity, but now it's been tempered by, she's got the sword and the shield, or in Daenerys' case, she's got a big ass dragon that she rides on that no one can mess with. Okay, that's like that dragon in Game of Thrones. That's like the ultimate boundary setting thing. Like there's no crossing the queen, right? Because the dragon will incinerate you if you do that. So you show her respect, and that's the same thing with a feminine woman who's integrated the animus. Is men won't cross you. They just feel like you're dangerous. You got a sword or you got a dragon. Like you're not an easy target. You're not a prey animal. Like if anything, you've integrated the predator in yourself, and that would be your shadow animus. Okay. And so now you apply that. That's the fourth stage. You apply that out in the world. And what that means is you don't take shit from men. You don't accept breadcrumbs from men. You're able to express boundaries with men. You have a certain level of self-discipline that you now can adhere to. You have a certain level of self-respect that you don't allow people to cross. And you've integrated these, what would normally be shadow masculine qualities, and you are more whole and you're stronger. And of course, you're stronger if you're more whole and you're more directed, and you won't tolerate low-level behavior from men anymore. And this is why you're solidifying and you're growing up and out into the world, because you know you're capable, you're adaptable, you're resilient, and you have these qualities to defend yourself now. And what ends up happening is you don't get spiraled, like romantically, what happens is you don't get spiraled into lame relationships anymore. You don't get pulled into these like dysfunctional, just pathetic relationships where it's like this guy is like not fully invested in me, but I'm going to stay with him for 5 years anyways, and then he just like leaves me at some point. Like you don't tolerate that anymore. What I usually see with clients who have been this way, they might have had like these long relationships where it was not serving them, and they were in there for a long time. And then eventually they come into themselves and they let go of that relationship. And then the next relationship they have is maybe a relationship that's better in many ways, but still not quite right. But they'll only be in it for like 2-3 months. And then they let go of that. And then usually it's that third relationship. That's the right one. And it's this iterative process. As she claims her own personal power, she just doesn't tolerate the same level of nonsense that she used to tolerate. She's dangerous. And these predatory men see her as dangerous, and so they stay the hell away from her, or they get their heads cut off. Win-win either way, right? So that is the feminine ego's journey. Stage one, identify that that's what you are. If you have issues with boundaries, you have issues with enmeshment, you're anxiously attached very easily in romantic relationships, probably oriented that way. Stage two, let go of the psychic links and the emotional anchors that are keeping you disconnected from yourself and attached to other people. Stage three, inward journey, meet your animus and integrate the positive and the dark qualities of masculinity to bring you into wholeness. And then stage four, embody and apply that out into the world in relationship to men so that you can actually exert your boundaries directly and you can express yourself and you don't accept breadcrumbs and you are actually like a dangerous warrior woman. Embody that Amazon. Okay. That is the feminine ego journey. Now, I told you guys that's all Group A. Group B here, this took me 40 minutes to describe that. It's not going to take me 40 minutes to describe Group B because a lot of the principles are the same. We're just going in reverse now, okay? Remember, if I told you at the very beginning, and for those who are joining us now, the feminine ego's path, solidification up and out, okay? A masculine conditioned ego's path is dissolution down and in. Dissolution down and in is the exact opposite. Okay, I've been using the term masculine conditioned ego woman, and I say that because I don't think that, and this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying that this is entirely correct. I don't think that a masculine ego is necessarily the natural state for most women. I think that it's largely conditioned and imprinted on them due to the structures of really our society and our civilization as a whole. Okay, this is why you hear the term, oh, we live in a patriarchy. You hear that all the time. Oh, we're in a patriarchy. I don't agree with the term patriarchy because a patriarchy implies that it's a society run entirely by men. And that's not true because we have plenty of women who are in positions of power and influence and who are just as corrupt as the men in positions of power and influence. There's good leaders too, but there's a lot of bad ones. Men and women are both bad and good leaders in our system. But I would say our system is a petrivalent system. What that means is the structure of civilization and society as a whole is oriented towards masculine metrics, masculine achievements, masculine. It rewards masculine success, this outward type of action. And so it's not a patriarchy, but it's a petrivalently oriented structure and system. Well, let's say you're a little girl and you're born into, I mean, this is certainly more the case in the West, which most people here, if you're from the States or the UK or Europe, I mean, you're in the West, Australia, you're in the West. If you're in the West and you're growing out a petrivalent system, let's say you're a little girl and your ego hasn't been formed yet. Well, you're imprinted on by the collective structures of the entire Western civilization. Like that's a lot of pressure externally imprinting onto you. It's also your family structures, which often tilt towards petrivalent values of like, oh, you're a good girl if you succeed in sports, or you get the good grades in school, or you accomplish this. A lot of times you're rewarded for these masculine measures of success. Okay, that's also imprinting onto you. Let alone you go through the school system and you're raised up and it's like you got to get the good grades and I got to pass the test, and these are all these like external quantitative things. Masculine imprint. You go into the corporate work structure or into the workforce as a whole, and all of a sudden it's like I have to operate on a specific clock and there's quotas that I have to meet, and it's all like metrics oriented. It's like masculine structures. It's like you're raised through a masculine education system into a masculine corporate work structure under masculine family dynamics under a collective masculine societal system. And if you're in the West, there was probably a heavy influence of Abrahamic religions, which are also a masculine petrivalent type of religious system, which is why they call God he. So all of this is imprinting onto you. And so yeah, it's understandable that your natural default state might be to be a feminine woman, but you have been masculinely conditioned into a masculine ego development. Okay. So because of all that, that is why I would say probably like half of women have a masculine ego structure. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like that's just the state of our society. And so some of you feminine women like kind of resisted that and you stayed embodied in a certain way, but just didn't like move up. Now the masculine women, they've over-identified with the conditioning. They've over-identified with the masculine mind, and they're disconnected from the feminine body, the feminine heart down here. Okay. So your journey, dissolution, down and in, dissolution, down and in. Okay. It's the same 4-step process of the feminine ego, but we're just kind of going in reverse. All right. So the first step is just identification that I'm a masculine conditioned woman. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's a huge percentage of the population. I'd say it's like easily half of my clients are like that. The way you know you're a masculine conditioned woman is you're probably like outwardly disciplined, structured, successful. You've built a physique, or you've built a business, or you've built your income. Like you've set these clear, specific goals, and you have been achievement oriented, and you have achieved them. Okay, you've got these like outward structures. You don't have a problem setting boundaries, people. You don't have a problem telling people to fuck off. You can be direct. You can be assertive, but there's a fear of vulnerability. You have a difficult time taking the armor off and letting your guard down. You have a difficult time showing your heart and letting people in. You have a difficult time relating to a man, or a lot of times, at least the men that you attract tend to be these more effeminate or boyish men who see you as like mommy who's going to take care of me because she's going to do all the heavy lifting and handle things because she's so strong and assertive and I'm not. And those are like the men that you continually attract. Okay, this is an indication that all of these are indications that you're in a masculine conditioned ego structure. Okay, so the first stage again is identification that that's me, that's where I am. And your journey is going to be very similar to what a man's journey is, the hero's journey, even though I'm still calling it heroines, but it's a masculine heroine. It's the hero's journey towards wholeness. Okay, so stage 1 is that's me, that's what I have, that's cool. Okay, stage 2 is it's going to be the same thing as releasing the emotional anchors. So there's a very good chance you've still got that friends with benefits that's not serving you. You've still got the ex who's a revolving door who comes back in. You've still got there's this really hot guy who was amazing in all these ways that I connected with, and I could have sworn he was my soulmate, but it didn't work out. And I let him go, but like I still subconsciously compare every man to him, and no one's living up. Okay, we have to let go of those. As long as you're holding onto those anchors, you can't set sail and you're not genuinely open-hearted. How can you be vulnerable with the next guy when I'm still like secretly yearning for this other individual who like no longer exists? Yeah. So that's the same second stage. And again, that's why like 80% of my clients who come to me have some kind of emotional anchor. It's always the first thing we do. Let it go, process it, release, typically about 1 to 2 months to do that. Boom. Okay. Now we can get into like the real deep work. Okay. That's stage 2. We got 2 more stages here. Step 3 for the masculine ego woman is your inward journey. Same process, just opposite direction. It's the same inward journey. The difference is you are meeting the feminine within yourself. Okay, the feminine woman meets the masculine animus. You, as a masculine woman, you meet the feminine anima. Your journey is very much like a man. You're meeting the feminine anima. Okay, A-N-I-M-A, anima. She is like she's the feminine spirit guide that will lead you back to the depths of your soul. You've spent so much of your life building these structures and growing towards achievement and success and metrics, but you've come to realize that there's a certain hollowness to all of this. And it doesn't matter that, oh, cool, I built my dream body. Oh, cool, I got that job position I always wanted. Oh, cool, like my finances are locked in. Like you get all these external metrics and those are all great. And yet there's still like a hollowness there. And I feel like I'm still not where I like there's a yearning, there's a void. Okay. That's like the call of your soul to go deeper. That's like, and your anima is going to be the guide who basically walks with you down into hell, who like calls you down into the underworld to meet yourself again. Okay. What I see with clients, what this looks like is I had a client recently. She just finished like 3 weeks ago. And she was having a lot of dreams with anima figures because she was a masculine conditioned woman and had been for about the last 30 years of her life. And so her call was to reconnect with the missing and lost parts of her own femininity. And she was having both positive and negative anima dreams because it's going to go the same way. There's going to be figures of light who are leading you towards a higher form of femininity, and there's going to be the dark feminine who's saying like, face me, integrate this. A lot of times the dark masculine takes forms of like predatory criminal, like gangster type men. The dark feminine takes the forms of like monsters, like giant spiders, dragons, crocodiles, like stuff like that. It's like this devouring feminine, like creatures. Okay. The can also take the form of humans, but she would have dreams like she's driving down the road and there's this woman lying in the street in the night, like just laying across the road, and she like hits the brakes and stops in her car and she gets out, and then this woman screams at her for like not paying attention to the other road. Just kind of weird dreams like that. And this is like a negative anima figure saying like you've been so fixated on following your one road, your one path, you think this is the one way of doing things. You're not paying attention to all of the other elements that make your journey your journey. You're so fixated on the end destination, a masculine approach of the goal that I'm focused on, that you're missing all of the sights along the way. You're forgetting to stop and smell the roses. You're not actually engaging with the world as you're doing this. And that's why you feel empty. And so this woman is like laying in the road, blocking her masculine path. And then she screams at her of like, pay attention to me. Enjoy your journey. It's not just about the end destination. It's about the actual enjoyment of this path. And she was starting to have dreams like that, but they were always of faceless women. She's a woman, but she's dreaming of faceless women. And initially she was confused because she's like, I've heard you talk about your other clients where they meet these faceless men, good men, bad men, but they meet faceless men. Why am I meeting women? And it's like, oh, it's because your ego structure is predominantly masculine at the moment. And so you need to meet these faceless feminine components that bring you into wholeness. And they're faceless because they don't need to be a specific person, because they represent certain qualities about you that you need to become whole. But you also feel a certain recognition of them. Is that correct? And she's like, yeah, like I kind of like, I don't know who they are. I don't know the specific details, but I kind of feel like I kind of know who this person is, as weird as that is. Like, yeah, because that's your anima. That's the feminine trying to call you home to yourself. It's a missing part of you. She's a woman who's embodying qualities that are you, that you have just not embodied because you've been disconnected from. You were conditioned out of them, or you thought they made you weak, or you feared the vulnerability that came with them. You feared like making yourself sensitive, whatever it might be. But she's trying to call you home to yourself. And that's why she's doing this. So that is the third step of the masculine conditioned woman's journey, is to meet the anima figure, light and dark. Yeah. Spirit and shadow. You're meeting both, and then that calls you home to yourself to integrate the missing feminine qualities. And usually for a masculine woman, what that is she's just been like, if the first feminine woman was too vulnerable and she needed to pick up the sword and the shield to like be able to go out into the world, the masculine conditioned woman is too armored. She's like walking around head to toe in like giant plate armor, and she's got like the huge helmet, and she's got a massive shield and like a freaking warhammer or something, right? And the problem that she has is that she can't attract her man because her man doesn't even recognize the beautiful woman in the armor. He just sees this super armored knight and he's like, oh, that's probably some other dude like me. Which I know it sounds mean, but it's like the masculine man doesn't resonate with her because she's masculine. And she's like the armored knight just like him. And so he just like he doesn't see the beautiful princess or the queen really, who's underneath because she's wearing this giant full-faced helmet and she's got all this armor. He just thinks it's another dude in armor on the battlefield like him. He doesn't recognize this. It's that whole like again to Game of Thrones. It's like the whole Brienne of Tarth type approach. Like no one knew it was a woman and a gentle-hearted, sweet woman underneath all of that. She's always walking around with like her freaking helmet on, at least her first presentation, and they thought it was like another man in armor. And that's a masculine conditioned woman is just like that. And so her journey is to go inward to meet those rejected or hidden or repressed or suppressed feminine parts of herself, to reclaim them and realize it's okay. I don't actually have to be fully armored all the time. I can take off some of these pieces of armor and I'm going to be fine. I know that I'm adaptable and resilient and I've got my own back. I'm okay. I trust that embodying some of these feminine qualities doesn't make me weak. It makes me more sensitive, but that's not weakness. There's a difference. It doesn't mean I'm going to be preyed on. I'm still assertive in my own way, but I can actually start to open myself up to love and vulnerability. And that brings us to the fourth stage, is now she embodies that and applies that on the dating scene with men. So typically what that's going to look like is little acts of making herself vulnerable, little acts of opening herself up to the right men, little acts of where she would normally maybe avoid something or try to run away from something. She doesn't do that. And she leans in and she lets her guards down and she shares something and she makes herself vulnerable in that way. And each one of these things is like she's taking off a piece of her armor and coming into the wholeness of like divine union. And when she takes off all of this like armored knight armor, that's when the queen can actually emerge, like the radiant, beautiful queen who was under there the entire time. But the man couldn't even recognize her because she's under all these layers of armor. She takes the armor off, and now the queen is here. And this is like going to be the rubedo, like the emergence of the king and the queen. But she has to remove the armor first. And that is the fourth and final stage for her. So what that would look like for men is before she was maybe overly boundaried. She was overly mathematical in her approach to dating. It's like it's a quantifiable checklist of like, oh, it's just numbers game, it's sales, blah, 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 blah. Like, I need to go on a ton of dates. She takes it from that perspective, or like, I'm like, does this man meet my preference expectations? Nope, off with his head. And she's too liberal with her use of her sword against men. Like, no man lives up to her impossible expectations. That's a masculine conditioned ego woman. No man lives up to her expectations, so off with his head. Okay, that's a masculine woman. So for her, it's like letting down my immediate reaction to just cut dudes with my sword, put that aside, start taking off my armor, and know that there is strength in the vulnerability that comes with this. And I don't have to hide behind my accomplishments, my achievements, the body I've built, the money I've made, the business. I can put all of that aside and know that my worth is not determined by any of that, but my worth is intrinsic to me. And there's a beautiful resilience in that. And it's okay to be that. And in fact, this is the path to the liberation of my soul. So that is the masculine ego woman's journey to love. Both a four-step process, both oppositional directions. Again, final time. The feminine woman solidifies herself and then grows up and out. The masculine conditioned woman dissolves herself and then goes down and in. Same journey, just opposite directions to reach wholeness, to embody the queen within, to ultimately attract and keep the king outside herself. That is the journey. This is the journey that I walk my clients through. This is what I do. It's pretty much in that four-step process exactly. And that's how I've translated it to your mythic path. essentially every client that comes to me is you're on one of those two directions. And now we figure out what exactly is your unique tailored path forward. So if this resonates with you and you're like, I'm tired of just general dating stuff of like, how do I set up my dating app and like that kind of stuff, it's because you realize it's deeper than that. You've probably, there's so much information out there about that. Like if you're on a call like this, if you're on a presentation like this, you like, if you just wanted dating app strategies, like I'm not the guy for you. To put it that way, there's plenty of other accounts out there. But if you're listening to this kind of material and this resonates with you and you realize there's something deeper to all of this and there's something mythic about my journey, and I know that there's something more, you're probably a good fit for this. Okay. So if you want to, I know like which of these paths is me, the feminine path or the masculine conditioned path, and like how do I come into that wholeness with myself to then attract the right man? Let's connect. Okay. What you can do, you go to my bio. There should be a new client consultation on there. Book a link on there. If you end up at my website, devinschirm.com, there should be a book a call. Book a call. I have a new client consultation form. Give me a little information on yourself. We'll connect in more detail. For those of you who are listening live, unfortunately, this does not apply to those in the recording, but for those who are listening live, if you book in a call with me, as a thank you for attending live and being here on a Saturday morning, if we end up working together off that call, I'll give you a 15% discount for signing on with me. Okay. So then that's only for those who are attending live. If you book in and we work together off that call, you get the discount. I think that covers it. Right about an hour, actually, maybe a little bit over an hour, but I kept this as concise as I could. There's a lot more that I could wax and pontificate on this. But I start to lose steam after a while. It's kind of like heavy material. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, hopefully it wasn't like too bombarding of information. You got some like value out of this and you enjoyed this. Yeah, I'd love to connect with those of you who are like ready to engage with this path. You're like, you know what? I'm tired of just spinning my wheels. I'm tired of being stuck in a certain dynamic. I want to move forward and come into authentic wholeness with me and to ultimately attract the right man for me and keep him too. If that's your goal and you want like a genuine soulmate connection with the person that God, the universe, whatever you believe in has in store for you, your path has to be deeper. If you just want a relationship, there's other dating coaches out there. Just figure out how to swipe on apps better and how to have chats and like something's eventually going to work for you. But I suspect that's not what you actually want. If you want that deep soulmate, like this is the person God has in store for me, you have to commit to your heroine's journey. And that's the path that I can help you with, whichever one of those two you fall into. So if you can't find the link, just send me a DM on Instagram. Just say, hey, was on your webinar. Super cool. How do we connect? And I will connect with you later today or Monday. Okay. I think that covers everything I want to go into here. I hope you guys found value from this. I hope you found some of this interesting. If there are any questions, I'm going to look through this chat a little bit for both places. If you guys have any questions you want to go into, Q&A, I'm going to be around for another 15 or 20 minutes. Happy to answer any questions. Questions related to this topic specifically or anything on this topic, or it could be totally on topic, off topic. I do not care. Whatever you guys want to ask, I'm down to go into it. I used to do questions a lot more often on Instagram, and I just haven't done that for a while. So Naomi asked, can we re-listen to this recording? Yes. So there will be a recording for this. I'm not certain exactly. I'm going to upload it to YouTube, I would say. So I'll put that up on YouTube. I'm not certain this is going to get sent out via email to everyone. So I'll upload it to, I think I'll probably upload it to YouTube and then you guys will, you'll see the link and we'll go from there. And then Carrie had asked, can you recommend a book to read? Yeah. I recommend a bunch of books to read, but it depends on what exactly are you looking for. I mean, if you're looking for a book related to this topic, oh man, there's a bunch. You're like asking me to like, what's one book? There's going to be two, I would say. I wonder if I can pull this up because I want to make sure I'm not butchering the name. Okay, so one is called Masculine and Feminine, the Natural Soul. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, so if you're looking for a bit more of like a psych terminology a bit more like academic scientific. It's not like horribly overwhelming by any means, but it's a good primer on like the flow of the masculine and feminine in the psyche, how it moves like through that figure eight pattern. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, there's a book called Masculine and Feminine: The Natural Flow of Opposites in the Psyche. It's by Gareth Hill. It's a Jungian psychological book. I will read this. Jungian psychological book that presents a model for understanding the masculine and feminine principles within everyone, moving beyond traditional gender roles to explore archetypal patterns. It's going to cover at least a certain portion of what we've talked about today. So that's if you want a bit more of a like kind of a psych heavy perspective. If you want these same concepts that I've talked about, but you want it done in a more of a just a story format. It's not as quite academic. It's like little stories that you can embody, and each story is kind of a different lesson. And this one is called, who was the author of this? Hucknall, I think. Or, yeah, that's it. This one's called The Rose and the Sword: How to Balance Your Feminine and Masculine Energies. It's by Judith Bach and Nanette Hucknall. It's a book that blends modern and fantasy stories to help readers balance their inner masculine and feminine energies, regardless of gender. So that was the other one. I read both of these years ago. They're a good starting off point. One bit psych heavier, one a bit more kind of like nice stories to read, little fantasy fairy tales and stuff. Yeah, repeating the names of the books. The first one is The Masculine and Feminine: The Natural Flow of Opposites in the Psyche, and that's by Gareth Hill, a bit academically heavier. The next one is The Rose and the Sword: Balancing the Masculine and Feminine, by, I think it's Judith Bach and Nanette Hucknall, something like that. Those are the two. Okay, I think that's most of the questions. You guys have any other questions? Anything this topic? Anything off topic? I'm going to scroll through this live chat because I saw there had been stuff. Okay, so someone had asked, the Intuitive Panda had asked, yeah, you're welcome, Carrie. Someone had asked on the live chat, what have you most typically witnessed when the animus is integrated? Union with that person or someone else that comes along after him? I imagine it go either way depending on what he decides. Yeah, very excellent question. What happens when you integrate the animus? So besides the fact that you achieve greater wholeness in yourself as a woman, and you, like if you were too sensitive before, you now have an ability to set boundaries. You now have an ability to kind of be a bit more like logos oriented and not always in constant eros of connection with other people. You don't overly identify with other people. You don't overgive. You don't try to just, I must have a relationship. You're a bit less anxious for a relationship because you're more centered and grounded in you. You're also less of a prey animal to predatory masculine type figures. So that's all that happens from, like, not all, but a good chunk of what happens from a your own internal self-alignment, your own like integrating those masculine qualities. So that's when the masculine is integrated within you. But then what happens when it comes to a man? So what usually happens is you have far less projective relationships with men. You have far less projective relationships with men. When you don't have, if you're a feminine woman and you don't have a very well integrated internal animus, then that animus gets projected onto men. Okay. And the more disconnected from your own inner animus you are, the more dysfunctional your relationships outside yourself are going to be. Because you have a very poor relationship to the man within. So it extends, you have a poor relationship to men without, to men outside. That's how it works. And so typically, like, let's say a woman has she has like no relationship to her inner animus. She's like totally disconnected from these masculine qualities. That's the woman who gets stuck in this pattern of like, I'm super attracted to these like caveman / like bad boys. Like I'm very attracted to this, like the rebel without a cause, like bad boy. And he's emotionally unavailable, but like he's emotionally unavailable because in a way, like my own inner animus is emotionally unavailable. I'm not connected. I don't have any kind of relationship to my own inner masculine. So the kinds of external masculines outside of me are either extreme forms of the masculine, like biker bad boy, criminal guy, or whatever, or it's men who are also just as emotionally unavailable and not ready for a relationship as my own inner man who I don't have a relationship with. Just it mirrors, as within, so without, as without, so within. It's the same mirroring. So by extension, if she has integrated the man animus, and she now can set boundaries, and she can exert herself, and she's direct, and she's got all these good qualities, what ends up happening in relationship to a man outside herself is she can just have way healthier, more mature and conscious relationships with a man outside herself. Because she's emerged as the more whole queen, she's now operating on a certain level of consciousness as a king. That's how it is. Like when people talk about, oh, it's your vibration or it's your consciousness. I mean, this is the individuation journey towards raising your vibration or towards a higher form of consciousness. That's what this whole journey is all about. Like that's what this is. So if she's coming into she's forming that relationship with him, and she's now more of an embodied queen, she's able to relate to a man who is operating at a king level frequency, or at the very least she meets him as like she's the princess and he's the prince, and they're now able to grow together into king and queenship. But if she hasn't integrated that and she's still operating at like no relationship to her own animus, then she continues in certain dysfunctional patterns and loops with men who represent her unavailable father, men who are bad boys who are unavailable to a relationship, men who are users and abusers because they represent the sadistic predatory form of the masculine that she's disconnected from in herself. Like that's how she gets stuck in these loops forever, and we don't want that. So she meets the man within, integrates him, becomes, and then she's able to meet an equivalent reciprocal man outside who's integrated the equivalent amount of his own femininity. I know this is kind of complicated and heavy. That's the best I can summarize it at the moment. Okay, coming back to the chat here. Okay, Karina, you'd ask, do you think removing an emotional anchor, for example, cutting off an ex from your life, depends on how long you've had a relationship with that person? Like 1 to 3 months to remove an anchor would actually be longer if that ex has been in and out of your life for like 20 years, as example. Yes, right. So if you're like more intertwined, the more intertwined with this person that you are, the more effort it's going to require to disentangle, right? Like if it was someone you just had like some super hot and heavy vacation romance with for 2 weeks or something, like it's probably not going to take you 2 months to like process and let this go. For the most part, it might, might be just like a week or something to like ritualistically release this. If by extension it was someone who's like been a super important figure in your life for, as you said, 20 years, yeah, you might be more on that like 2 or 3 month end of the range. It's depends on like how many knots have been built into this, because like every relationship you have, you can kind of picture it as like a web. And I don't mean like a bad web, although it's kind of good and kind of bad. Like it's like a web. And like every experience you've had with them is like another link in the web. And good experiences and bad experiences, like there's just more we gotta like disentangle. There's just more there. There's more stuff in the attic that we got to clean out, so that's just going to take longer to clean out a super stacked attic, right, than just one that has a couple boxes. So yeah, it would be on the longer end. Chelsea asked, have you seen clients that have a disconnection with both the inner masculine and feminine, and there's a needed blend of both group and A and B in journey? Yes. So you might not have been here. I think I'd said a little bit of that at the beginning, where like you probably identify more with one of the A and B journey. Like there's probably one you lean more to, but realistically, like there's a lot of people who are going to have a foot in both camps. And that's why you see like a lot of times where when you see within a relationship dynamic, we'll tie this to attachment theory for a moment. You're not always purely anxious in a relationship or always purely avoidant. Right? You might have a strong leaning towards one of those, but a lot of people oscillate between anxious and avoidant depending on who outside of themselves they're dealing with. And the reason for that is because, like, let's say you might tilt towards anxious because you're a feminine coded ego woman. Well, eventually, maybe you do actually you encounter someone else who like is going to be the oppositional, and that pushes you into an avoidant kind of thing. You encounter someone who's maybe even more feminine than you, and then you're like, ugh, and you kind of like move into your masculine and kind of enter these more avoidant type of tendencies, and you move that way. So yeah, most of us are probably going to be a bit of a blend of both. You're just going to lean heavier in one direction, so that's usually the path that is going to be the most psychologically impactful for your journey toward wholeness. Like which one of these, especially in romantic relationships, put it aside for life, career, and stuff, like put all that aside. In romantic relationships, which of these ways do you kind of lean more often? Let's start there, because that's going to move the needle the most for you. Exactly. Yeah. You said attachment theory is like disorganized attachment. Exactly right. Like that's someone who is like, they're insecure in both capacities, right? They're going to like oscillate between the two. Whereas a secure individual is someone you've integrated your inner masculine or your inner feminine, and you embody enough of both that you are stable and secure within you. So that regardless of what's going on outside of you, how this person's acting or how they're showing up or what energy they're embodying, doesn't matter. They don't push you off of center because you are solid in you. You have formed yourself into a whole individual, so it doesn't really matter what the other person's doing. Um, yeah, disorganized is the person who's very disconnected from themselves, so they're oscillating between like from both camps. Yeah. If you guys have any other questions, still happy to go into that. I'm going to just scroll up through the chat here. If there was I could have sworn I saw another one here. Okay. No, someone was just saying my Wi-Fi was cutting in and out, which I'm not surprised it was. Okay. I think that covers it on this live chat. I don't think, is there like comments that I just didn't see or something? Questions? Okay. No, I think we're good on this. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else that you want to go into? Any other questions, updates? Otherwise, we're right at about the hour and a half mark. So I'll do like literally 5 more minutes. If you guys have anything else, otherwise we'll call this one. Anything you guys have? And it's perfect timing because my battery on my phone is dying for the live stream. So perfect timing. No, you guys good? Nothing else? You guys can literally just post in the chat like, wait, I have something I'm typing. Just give me time to type. You guys are good. We can call this one. Cool. Yeah, my pleasure, Carrie. You're welcome, Chelsea. Thank you guys for the good questions. I think we'll probably call this one. Thank you again, everyone, very much for being here, giving me your time and energy on a Saturday morning to join us. You're welcome, Naomi. A pleasure. Appreciate you guys being here and investing in like learning something. Hopefully, I tried to ground these like symbolic esoteric concepts to as grounded as I could, but also still don't want to like take out the mythical meaning of it. So I hope this resonated with you guys. Very much appreciate you all being here. For those of you who have booked in calls, I will see you on those days. For those of you who are here or want to book, or you are listening to the recording and you want to book, just go to the link in my bio. Should be a new client one-on-one special. That'll go right to the booking link, or you can go to my website and it should say book a call. Thank you guys. I will hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon.